Buckle your seatbelts for another tale that will leave you questioning what lurks in the shadows. What if I told you that there's an island in Italy where more than 100,000 people met their tragic end, and their spirits are said to haunt it to this day? This is something you must hear to believe. Today we're going to share the mystery of Poveglia Island, Italy's most haunted island. Located in the Venetian lagoon, this small, abandoned island has a dark and disturbing history that spans centuries. But before we dive into the horrors that have taken place here, there's an even more terrifying chapter involving a mad doctor and his gruesome experiments. I'll share the details in just a moment. Poveglia Island was first used as a quarantine station during the Black Plague in the 14th century. As the disease ravaged Europe, the island became a dumping ground for the sick and dying. Thousands of plague victims were brought here to live out their final, agonizing days. And when they died, their bodies were burned in mass graves. The island's soil is said to be mixed with the ashes of the dead, and some say you can still hear their screams carried by the wind. But before we get too deep into this grim history, let's talk about the other horrors that Poveglia has witnessed, particularly the story of a deranged doctor who performed unspeakable experiments on the island's later residents. I'll share more about that in just a moment, but believe me, there's so much more to uncover. In the 1920s, a mental hospital was established on Poveglia Island. The hospital quickly gained a notorious reputation, largely due to the sadistic experiments conducted by its head doctor. According to local legend, this doctor subjected his patients to cruel and unusual treatments, including lobotomies performed with primitive tools. The doctor eventually went mad himself, driven insane by the spirits that haunted the island. He is said to have thrown himself from the bell tower, where his body was found crushed on the ground below. Today, visitors report hearing the sound of the bell ringing, even though the bell itself was removed years ago. Remember when I mentioned the doctor's gruesome experiments? Well, here's the jaw-dropping part about it. The spirits of those tortured in the asylum are said to roam the island, their anguished cries echoing through the ruins of the hospital. Paranormal investigators who have visited Poveglia report feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, seeing shadowy figures, and hearing disembodied voices pleading for help. Okay, so we've explored the haunted history of Poveglia Island, from the plague victims whose ashes fill the soil to the tormented souls of the asylum. It's been an interesting tale, hasn't it? Don't miss out on more spine-chilling tales. Follow us for more paranormal stories.